Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Gary Blackwood. Welcome back to the vlog. Bad news for you guys, we're still in slow-mo intro mode, so there'll be no 2-minute talk about what I had for breakfast or the war in Palestine. Unfortunately, we're getting straight into poker today. We're starting the game four-handed. It's me and three very solid pros. Kind of sucks, but there's no real choice. If we don't start the game like this, the game doesn't get off the ground, and it's not going to run later in the day. This does happen sometimes, but we just battle it out for a little while before the game fills up. You would think that we could play the 10, 20, 40 when it runs, but anyway, on to our first real hand of the day. We're five-handed, and I'm first to act with King Jack suited. I raised it on up to $30. Actually is now on local pro Charlie in the small blind, who puts in their re-raise to $135. It falls all the way back around to me, and I decide to call. We'll go heads up to the flop, which is King 9-3 all diamonds. My opponent, interestingly enough, checks, and I decide to bet my top pair for a small size. I bet $70. My opponent thinks for a few seconds and then makes the call. The turn is a 10. My opponent checks to me, and I decide to pot control and check it on back. To the river, it is a jack. I make two pair, but any queen now makes a straight. My opponent now leads into me for $350. I am in the tank, thinking if I can ever be good here, it's tough to find any stone cold bluffs that my opponent could have. Although this reg is certainly capable, I may be in the tank for a little bit too long here, because it is a relatively small bet in the grand scheme of things. Seat 2, who isn't even the hand size, leans back in his chair and shouts out, That is one way to tell me to hurry up. I'm normally a pretty fast player, but maybe this tank was a little bit too long. I do decide to just go ahead and fold my hand. JD, if you're watching, apologies to you for being so goddamn boring. All right, game is not great today. It's about an hour in. It's still only six-handed. Sometimes the games here can be really great, but there is the odd occasion where it gets a little short and stale. Next up, I'm in the big blind with ace-queen. It folds all the way around to the middle blind. He's the only non-pro in the game. He puts in a small raise to $25. I, of course, put in the re-raise. I make it $100 to go. My opponent thinks for a few seconds, and he makes the call. We go heads up to the flop, which is ace-king-king with two clubs. Interestingly enough, my opponent now leads into me for $100. I'm a bit surprised to see this, but I don't think I have any other option than to just call. We go heads up to the turn, which is a 9, and he continues to barrel, this time for $400. I am very surprised by this, but once again, I don't think there's any other option than just call. To the river, it is an offsuit 9, and now my opponent moves all in. I am completely flabbergasted. I have no idea what's happening. I asked the dealer for a count. It's $935. I really don't know what's going on here, why he's leading into me 3 times. Would he ever lead on the flop with a king? Would he lead for 3 streets with a king? Why would he lead anything? He could just have a stone cold bluff. He could have ace-jack. It could be a chop. It's live poker. He could have anything. So in the end, I decide that if he can have worse for value or if he can have a stone cold bluff, I have to call. I do make the call, and he turns over King 5 of hearts. Quite annoying to see that he's got 3 of a kind, but I'm happy with my call here. It's not crazy for him to have ace-jack or a bluff, but I'm now down 2k for the day. But hold that thought as I pick up pocket kings in the very next hand. Action folds around to me in the middle blind. I raise to $40, and he folds. This is extremely anticlimactic. I thought maybe I was going to get a little back there, but hold that thought again as the very next hand I pick up ace-king of clubs. The button is the guy who's just stacked me. He raises to $35, and I put in a healthy re-raise to $150, and my opponent makes the call. We'll go heads up to the flop, which is 10-3 deuce with 2 diamonds and 1 club. I decide to c-bet my hand here for $150, and my opponent makes the call. Looking for some help on the turn, but it's the 9 of hearts. Don't love it, but I decide to barrel again, make him fold a hand like pocket 4s through pocket 8, maybe deny some equity from some gut shots, that type of stuff. And sure enough, he does make the fold. He shows me pocket 6s face up. He asks if I had it. I show him my big slick, and I jokingly tell him that we are even. He does laugh at that, and it's also a few $100s back after getting stacked. So it's not the end of the world, and the grind goes on. All right, 45 minutes later, I pick up a couple of J-boys on the button and raise it on up to $35. The big blind is going to make the call. He's the guy that had that queen 9 of diamonds a few vlogs ago for the most incredible river call you've ever seen when I was bluffing with 8 high. We go heads up to the flop, which is king 6 for rainbow. I don't love the overcard to the board, but I decide to c-bet for a small size. I bet $25. And my opponent busts out the check raise to $100. Don't love it, but nothing else I can do other than call. Heads up to the turn, it is a 6, which pairs the second card. and my opponent bets again, this time for $150. Same as the flop, I don't love it, but there's nothing else I can do other than call. The river is a 10. My opponent slows down and checks. I check back, fully expecting to be good, but he turns over ace-6 of clubs. This is a very nice low frequency flop raise. Most players don't find these second and third pair raises, but kudos to him for finding the raise. I don't love his river check though. I'd personally be blasting it all day long. No luck with those J-boys. How about these J-boys 20 minutes later? I put on the straddle in a bid to drive some action. The cutoff is raised it on up to $50. The button is called, and I put in a healthy squeeze to $275. The cutoff makes the call. The button folds his hand. We go heads up to the flop, which is ace-6 deuce with 2 diamonds. Again, don't love the overcard, but I do decide to c-bet for a small size. I bet $200, and my opponent makes the call. To the turn, it is a 9. I don't think I can bet my hand here, so I decide to check. And after a few seconds, the cutoff decides to move all in. It is $1,200 more to me. I've got a lot of ace-x, some top set type hands. Those are the hands we want to be calling here instead of pocket jack. So I just sigh and fold my hand, and he windmills king 10 of diamonds across the table at me. Now that he shows it, it kind of makes sense. A lot of his top pairs are going to check back the turn here. Still, it is tough to call it off with anything other than an ace. This is going to put me down over $2,000 for the day, but it's only a couple of hours in. Still plenty of time to get it back. All right, so I have missed the beginning of this hand because I was out for a 10-minute slow motion break. Straddle is on here, and Stream Legend DK has called in the hijack. The cutoff is called as well, and the button puts in the raise to $130. I am in the small blind with ace-jack and make the call, and both limpers call as well. We're going 4 ways to the flop, which is ace-9-3 with 2 diamonds. Not a bad start here at all, flopping top pair. We check it on over to the button, who bets $135. I, of course, make the call, as does the hijack. We go 3 ways to the turn. It's another ace. Beautiful card for my hand. Guys, we can't all have an ace here. It's just not possible. We check it on over to the button again, and he checks it back. To the river, it is a meaningless 4, and I decide to bet out here. I try and get some value with my 3 of a kind. I bet $550. Action is on the hijack. He tanks for a minute, and then he moves all in for $745 total. The button gets out the way. It's only a couple of $100 more to me, so I, of course, snap call, and he turns over pocket 4s. That 4 wasn't so meaningless in the end, was it? This is a dagger through the heart when I see this. I know you guys are thinking, whoa, that's the worst beat I've ever seen in my life, and I'd sure love to do something to help you out, Gazzy, to make you feel better. Well, you can. Around 50% of people watching this are not subscribed to the channel. If you could take 2 seconds to pause the video and hit the subscribe button, that would help ease the pain of this life-threatening cooler. In all seriousness, it costs nothing. It helps me out, guys and girls, so go ahead and click the button. All right, game is much better than it was at the beginning. It's a good thing we battled out four-handed at the beginning, isn't it? Next up, I pick up ace-4 of clubs. 2 players in early position have limped, and I decide to over-limp with a few loose gooses behind. The big blind is going to make the call. The straddle is going to check. We go 5 ways to 10, 3 deuce with 1 club. It checks to me, and I take a stab for $75. It falls to the big blind, who check raises to $200. Action is back on me, and I'm in position with a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw, and my ace might be live, so I decide to call. The turn is a 10. He bets $300, and I, of course, fold my hand. I just can't get anything going so far today. Currently stuck $3,600 for the day. Still, though, the grind goes on. 5 minutes later, I pick up another trashy ace in the straddle. Just kidding, of course. The button is raised to $60, and I, of course, re-raise to $250. The button is going to make the call. We go heads up to the flop, which is ace, jack 5 with 2 spades. Clear c-bet from here with top pair, top kicker. I bet $175, and my opponent makes the call. The turn is the deuce. Doesn't really change anything, and I continue to bet, try and get max value from his ace-x and all his draws and all that stuff. I bet $375, ready to shove the river if he calls, but he just lets his hand go. This is not a massive pot by any means, but we're having a rough day and getting 2-outed on the river. Every small or medium pot feels very precious, so I'll for sure take it. The game sucked earlier, but is much better now. A lot more action, so I'm really quietly hopeful that we can turn this day around. All right, 40 minutes later, I'm in the middle blind with king 4 of clubs. The cutoff is a very loose goose. He raises it on up to $40. I decide to make a bit of a loose peel. I'm snap folding versus anyone else at the table, but I want to play with this guy, so I make the call. We go heads up to the flop, which is king queen 9 with 2 hearts and 1 club. I check to my opponent. He bets out for $100, and I, of course, make the call. Standard stuff so far. The turn is a 9. And he bets again, this time for $200. Again, nothing else I can do other than just call. To the river, it is a meaningless 4. He actually asked me if I've got a 9 and bets out for $200. I really don't love this, especially after he asked me that question and then bets, but he is the type of player that can have King Jack, King 10, King 8, and he can for sure find bluffs for this size. Hell, he can even have Ace Queen, I think, so I just sigh and make the call. He shows me Ace 9. I really don't mind any part of this hand versus this specific player, but when he asked me if I have a 9, alarm bells really should be ringing. It's $200 on the river though. He could probably show me a 9 and I'd still want to call it off versus this guy. Time for a break, and after a few sessions of slow-mo interviews, I finally realize what's going on.
Alright, I've just realised that fucking everything has been in slow motion all day. That is just the most infuriating thing. I was chatting away at the camera and stuff and it was all in fucking slow motion, so it's all useless. I am down about 3k. It's 6:15. I've been grinding for about 5 hours. I feel like I played really well today. A couple of nasty coolers against. Game was awful, then amazing, then now it's pretty average. Got a couple of hours left until I go play soccer. Trying to piss off the Europeans with that one, and it seems to be working. Yeah, not much to say. I felt I played quite well, and I'm feeling good. I was a little dejected earlier, a couple of nasty beats, but I mean it wasn't affecting the way I was playing or anything like that. But yeah, just chilling. A couple of hours left. Down about 3k. I think 2,800. We'll say. And hopefully we can just get some of it back before we go play soccer. But we'll see. We'll just play the best we can and let the chips fall where they may.
All right, back in my seat here, I'm winning some small pots now, gaining a bit of momentum. And next up, I'm in the hijack with Ace Jack of Diamonds. The straddle is off here, so I raise it on up to $30. The button is an unknown player who makes the call, and the small blind is a local pro who shouted boring at me earlier today. He then puts in the squeeze to $160. I'm happy to 4-bet bluff this sometimes, but calling with the unknown player seems like the best option. So I go ahead and make the call, and the unknown player calls as well. For some reason, unbeknown to man, the professional player in the small blind who squeezed is now going to check dark. This is really, really strange from him, but I guess he's just feeling a bit silly today. We go 3 ways to the flop, which is 10, 6, deuce with 1 diamond. The small blind is of course checked in the dark, so action on me. I decide to check it on over to the button. Happy to see him check back. The turn is the jack of hearts to give me top pair, but a flush draw is now possible, and the reg in the small blind is now going to bet out for $320. I of course have to call. Kind of happy to see the button just get out the way here. The river is another 10. He must know I'm not folding because he just gives up and checks to me. I decide my hand is not strong enough to bet for value. I just check it on back and he turns over Ace King offsuit. I'm not sure if he would have c-bet this hand versus 2 players had he not checked dark. So maybe the hand just plays out the same, but I'll for sure take it. I'm now only stuck $2,100 for the day. There is a small chance that we can get out the hole. All right, straddle is now back on. I'm in the $20 straddle here with Queen 6 offsuit. It falls right to the middle blind, who makes the call. I check my option. We go heads up to the flop, which is 10, 9, 8 with 2 hearts. He checks me and my hand feels like an amazing hand to blast off with here. I block Queen Jack. I block 7, 6. So I start off with a bet of $50. My opponent makes the call. I'm kind of happy to see him call because I want to blast this hand on the turn. The turn is an offsuit deuce. It's a complete brick, and when my opponent checks again, I barrel again for $130. Once again, he makes the call, and once again, I'm kind of happy to see that because I want to triple barrel this one off. To the river, it is an offsuit ace. He checks once more, and I follow through betting $325. Immediately, though, after betting, I realize I probably should have overbet this on the river. As my opponent tanks more and more, I regret my decision not to absolutely bomb it here on the river, and after a while, he folds. There's no harm done by not overbetting the river. This is a nice pot coming my way. Had to blast my way out of that situation, but unfortunately after this it takes another hour before I play any significant hands of note. I raise 2 blackjacks on the button to $50 and I just win the blinds. This is legit the 9th or 10th time that I've had jacks today, and I've shown them every single time.
What is happening? What is going on now? What is happening?
There is also not to be a Stuckout today. I end up throwing in the towel very soon after this, finishing down a couple of $1,000 for the day. But it's been a fun day all in all. Really happy we got the game going. It turned out to be really good for a while, which is always nice. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the show. Consider clicking that sub button. I will let the outro play.
All right, guys, we are done. Hopefully this is not in slow motion. I lost 2,026 American dollars. I feel like I played really well. I'm really happy with the quality of play. That's all that matters. I've lost like 6 out of the last 7 sessions, but I don't care. I've been a pro for 10 years. I expect sessions like this, spells like this, as long as I play really well. and focus. That's all that matters, and I feel like I played really well today. I was really happy with the quality of play. That's all that matters. I'm away to play soccer in Santa Monica now. If you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd be very grateful. Yeah, that'll do it from me. Until next time, take it easy.